Hey, it's Josiah, and today we're talking about Nick Cave. On today's episode, I was joined by my brother Caleb and reoccurring co-host and the official music guy of the podcast, Josh Christensen. We focused in on the early period of Nick Cave's music with his first band, The Birthday Party, and then the first few decades of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. On top of this, Caleb and I got a chance to see Nick Cave live in Kansas City with our dad at the beginning of May, and we talk a bit about that experience. So, yeah, it's a fun one. But before we get into the episode, I do need to say that you can support this show on Patreon. For a mere $3 a month, you get access to all sorts of perks, like multiple bonus episodes every month, access to the Fruitless Discord, and the occasional deleted scene from an episode. There's a bunch of deleted scenes from this one, so check that out. Recent episodes on the Patreon have included a discussion of the film Spring Breakers and the cinema of Harmony Korine, as well as the most recent installment of The Music Exchange, a series where Josh Christensen and I exchange an album that we find personally meaningful and then compare and contrast them. The most recent Music Exchange discussed The Pleasure Principle by Gary Newman alongside The Suburbs by Arcade Fire. That's a fun one, and there will be another Music Exchange out before the end of the month, as well as another Patreon episode around the end of the month. So this is a good time to get subscribed. We're going to be spamming the Patreon feed in the next week. But if you're not quite ready to support the show on Patreon yet, consider just leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, and I might read the review out at the top of an episode. So do that. All right. With all that out of the way, let's get on with the episode. You are listening to Fruitless, a podcast hosted by me, Josiah Sutton. This is episode 63, Nick the Birthday Party, featuring Caleb and Josh. We talk about Nick Cave and the birthday party, so yeah.
By this point, I mean this episode, so you know we're covering, but I mean I think there is like an evolving canon of what I'm loosely terming dark Americana, which I might include like mine and Josiah's development of the concept of a Midwestern Gothic, maybe a subset of I don't know, right, I guess you could getting David Lynch, Tom Waits, and Nick Cave all in conversation, I think is something that's been done before.
Sure.
And there's certainly a lot of like thematic overlap. I mean, I'd certainly, if you get interested in one, you're going to run into the other of those.
Yeah,
at some
those
point.
Guys. Yeah, they're all kind of interested in similar but different ways of looking at something. Well, okay, yeah. So that was actually something I did want to bring up, and so now that we're kind of rolling here, we're doing the Nick Cave episode. We're talking about the birthday party, specifically, kind of more focused more on early period Nick Cave for a lot of this. But yeah, one thing I was thinking is that I think Nick Cave continues what you've described Tom Waits as a bit recently, since we did that Music Exchange episode, is kind of like tapping into an American evil, like being really in touch with a certain type of American mystical evil. Nick Cave is kind of like that, but I think what's interesting about it is that he's not American.
Yeah.
But he's really fascinated with like the American South and a lot of his imagery. Southern Gothic stuff is influencing him a lot. And then like, Westerns, that kind of stuff. And so I kind of think almost it's more like a Anglo-colonial evil. Like it's a little more universal, it's like not just the US, but it also matches up with like Australia. And you probably could say like South Africa or something too. There's a certain type of like Anglo frontier, the evil of the Anglo.
Actually, where he's born kind of adds up to that, because he was born in, if I can pronounce this right, Warwick, Nabil, Australia. And that's really close to where Ned Kelly had it. Ned Kelly had his last stand.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but then
No,
it's
go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it's like, okay, I didn't realize that was from that one region, because it's like his dad put on some sort of like symposium or event on Ned Kelly as a figure.
Mhm.
So it was like, I don't know, I did not pick up on like that was from the same
Yeah,
area.
real close, because it's a real small. It was like at the time, because he was born in 1957. It was 2,000 people living there. So real tiny rural town with a lot of like history and I don't know what the Americana version of Australian version of Americana is, but like that.
Yeah,
It's like you know,
Australiana.
yeah, Australian. You mentioned his dad. His dad was a teacher and his mom was a librarian, so he was like really educated too.
Yeah, there's something like distinctly literary
Yeah.
about like all of Nick Cave's work. And like what I was actually kind of surprised by for the kind of playlist Caleb made for this episode, it's focused a lot more on Nick Cave's earlier stuff. I'm most familiar with later Nick Cave, so Dig Lazarus Dig, Boatman's Call, and then like the more recent stuff. And that stuff's very, very literary. I was surprised how much going back into the stuff when he's like young and full of piss and vinegar, it's still really literary. Like it's still really
real
like
Shakespearean.
No matter, even when it is like, release the bats kind of gothic weird music, it still has like all of that era still like you could tell this guy's been like, I don't know, he's taken a couple English classes. You could tell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's read a few books.
He's read a book or two.
In the Wikipedia article, like the two titles they name drop, because they in the little biographical blurb about his folks, like, oh, his dad was an English and math teacher, and he read to him literature at a young age, classics like Crime and Punishment and Lolita.
It's like, oh, okay, I get why
all right.
he turned out that way. Okay. That is awesome. Like, that's so funny. Like, that's the kind of, like, where it's like, yeah, he's reading classic literature, but this isn't some To Kill a Mockingbird shit. He went straight to the darkest shit. This is like, it's like, I raised my child on classic cinema, like Salo. And
right, just right to the heart of the matter. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, Nick Cave's dad is Tony Todd from The Rock saying, "I don't like that soft ass shit." It's like, the kid is 7 years old. Dostoevsky, Nabokov.
Yeah, we're
let's go.
Dostoevsky, Nabokov, Flannery O'Connor. I'm 7, and already the world is broken and evil to me.
Yeah. No, yeah, but that's no, going back to this early stuff, because like you, Josiah, I am much more familiar with latter day Nick Cave's artistic output, almost specifically Dig Lazarus Dig, and then his screenwriting work, and then I mean, like, the fact that Red Right Hand's in Dumb and Dumber is really fucking funny in retrospect.
Wild.
It's like, and I think it's just because Jim Carrey's, it's the scene where he's like, early in the movie, he's like walking home, and he had spent a bunch of money he was supposed to spend responsibly on some bill on like a giant foam novelty cowboy hat, and he's trying to get like a porno mag out of a dispenser in the street, and it's playing Red Right Hand the whole.
I do not remember this.
So like that is arguably the first place I encountered him. The second was Metallica's cover of Lover Man on disc 2 of Garage Days Revisited.
They covered him.
And then Dig Lazarus Dig, and then the film Lawless, which he wrote.
Great movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
And and then since then, I mean, isn't it Peaky Blinders, right? Is that the one that
Yes,
a lot of people
I think
found
the
him
theme song.
in recent years? Yeah.
Yeah, the two like big things he's known for, I guess 3 now that I know he's in Dumb and Dumber. But it's that, Peaky Blinders, and then just Oh Children is probably his most popular song aside from that.
Yeah.
because that one's just has a broad appeal, I would say.
Yeah, that one's a bit more accessible. Yeah, I mean, his later stuff is a lot more accessible, although I wouldn't say it's any less artistic or artistically
No, Abattoir
minded.
Blues is a beautiful and really well done album.
But yeah, I mean, I think for those who have found his stuff in kind of this Nick Cave revival, he's kind of had a resurgence in popularity in his late life. And I think for a lot of people who have discovered him now in the last couple decades, it is weird when you go back to The Birthday Party. And it's like, oh man, this is aggressive and difficult music sometimes.
Yeah.
like challenging shit.
Yeah.
He has transcended goth music entirely. Like he's no longer a part of that. He's just Nick Cave, and which is intentional. Like he wanted to stop doing the stuff that sounded like The Birthday Party. He didn't feel artistically fulfilled by that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just gone past all of that, and like you're saying, it's so weird to look back and see that he is he was around with early hardcore bands and in the goth scene, and then it's like, the goth scene sucks, I'm moving to Germany.
Yeah, I think there's been a slow shift in his artistic career from being a guy who is really interested and focused on evil as a subject to a guy being focused on grief. And they're still intermixed and related, but I think that's the slow evolution you find as it goes on. And I think part of that came from during the bad, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds kind of stuff. His interest in the murder ballads, obviously getting interested in that because of the evil side of it, but leaving it realizing how much the beauty of those songs is how sad and mournful they often are. And that seems to be the direction he starts to go after that.
Yeah.
But Caleb, I guess why don't you kind of walk us through what Nick Cave's whole kind of arc? I don't know.
Yeah, so they weren't the first goth band, but I think they're the scariest goth band.
The most violent band in the world, as they said at the time.
A lot of they were being advertised that way. So they had a really bad relationship with their fans and vice versa.
Which I mean, was, I think, pretty typical of the punk and punk adjacent scene.
Yes.
I think just having been closer to the modern scene, I get why the old guys are alienated, because it has become very touchy-feely in a way it explicitly was not in the old days.
Yeah. Some of the shit they were getting up to in these shows were when they released the song Nick the Stripper, that song is him stripping down and making himself a sacrifice on stage. So there's fire around him and he's naked, almost naked. So I get.
Meanwhile, in that interview you sent us, he was talking about how they would have to have a special guy who's a former Marine hang out at the front of the stage and just look for weapons to yank out of the hands of audience members.
I think it you're probably to get to this eventually, but I think it very notable that he had discovered heroin by this time. I have a note that it's early 70s. It's just fucking art school punk rock heroin. I mean, it's just,
that's talking heads.
It all happened.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. So I loved in that interview clip, him going oh, were you scared? And he's like, I didn't have too many feelings about it at all. Paraphrasing a bit.
I remember just the idea of just being so high that he had he's like, I couldn't really be scared. I was barely conscious for most of these shows.
Yeah, because it wasn't just heroin. It was heroin and booze. It was just pounding back and forth.
Famously a great combination. Let me tell you.
Two of the worst downers
Oh man, how did his music end up so depressing?
So kind of how they started off as a band was because they go back a while of just little projects. I don't know what their original band was called, but members of them have been doing stuff since like 1973. But it's like really when their start is 77.
Yeah, all of his projects have like a weird blur in the first few years of it or whatever, where the name is shifting constantly. Because I think it was that Henry Rollins interview you had sent us or talk or whatever, where he talked about like, oh yeah, I saw Nick Cave and the Cavemen. Oh, that was what they were called before they were the Bad Seeds. Like he had to quickly add that. And it's like, what? I didn't even know. I don't even think that's on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah. His Nick Cave's spinoff band Grinder Man was originally called Mini Seeds or something like that. Yeah, but so wow. I don't remember what like the first group of like they had. I think we're going through different people trying to figure it out. And Nick isn't like he's like kind of the lead singer of the band, but he's not the songwriter of the birthday party. Like he writes songs, but it's Roland S. Howard is like the crazy, loud, screechy shit. That's him.
Gotcha.
He would be like one of the him and Nick would be the ones starring the band. But anyway, they start off as the Boys Next Door. So that's that one album with the stuff that's kind of pop, or at that time would be pop punky.
Roman, you're so cute. Roman, better. All the girls they jump for joy. Roman,
70s pop punk, so more like Ramones and stuff like that.
Yes, and that's what they were going for. It was a mix of they actually started off covering the Ramones and Patti Smith and Alice Cooper.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, so they started off in, I think that was 1977 was the Boys Next Door, and I think their first single was them covering These Boots Are Made for Walking.
Oh, interesting.
That was like their first single. You can find a music video of that, and it's weird to see how like when you think like an 80s like heartthrob in a band, and that's what they were looking like at the beginning. So this first album they released under the Boys Next Door, which is just called Door. That Nick Cave kind of hates.
Yeah.
I think in the book I was reading, he called it like it's bordering on prepubescent drivel or something like that. It's like mean, but also he was like 16 or 18 or something. I don't know, around that age when they were making that. So I get looking back and being embarrassed.
I mean, I played in, a punk kind of band, alternative band in high school, and I periodically cringe at some of the lyrics and the music I wrote at that time that I sang in front of people that no one who was at that show would ever remember. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't even a thing. Imagine if there were people who were like, hey, I love that song that you wrote when you were 16. I'm like, really? You do?
Yeah.
Really? I don't know about that. Okay. So I feel that. I can imagine how weird that would feel.
And that was funny reading because I just read that today that he hates that album, and I was like, that one of my favorite songs is off of that album of favorite Nick Cave songs. After a Fashion is one of my favorites. So it's like, oh, okay.
I forget myself that you had on the playlist. That was a standout. I liked that quite a bit actually.
There's also the baffling song about Roman Polanski on there.
Yes. So I wanted to bring that one up.
Okay. Yeah.
Roman was cool at me, and she was only 13. Oh, it's a crying shame. Roman,
What was going on with? I mean, I will say, impressively early to be calling him out on that.
Yeah,
I guess
because that would have happened like 2 years prior to the song's release.
Yeah,
I think Roman Polanski had one of those open secret reputations in Hollywood. So like there was a carefully managed public persona, but like from the gossip, you can kind of like if you press people on it, they're like, yeah, it was kind of a sham. He was fucking anything that moves that wasn't really legal, and like Sharon Tate was like, I don't know. Yeah, kind of just suffering through it, but still like, I don't know. It was a very dysfunctional situation, and he was a pretty messed up guy. But both before his wife is murdered and before he raped a child. So
I was kind of surprised that, because like usually when you hear something directly reference Polanski doing that, it's later on. It's not a song from the 70s, but Nick Cave was on it, I guess.
So yeah, when I first like found this album, which I found it through the song "Shivers," which was like the big single off of it.
Hmm.
That just took me aback. Like you were saying, you just don't see that kind of thing. Like a lot of punk bands will take like a stance or something, but that was just like an interesting one to see at the in the time. And it's such a fun little punk song. It's like weird how catchy that one is.
Yeah, that's the thing that's really the most striking about all this early material. Like the boys next door going into the birthday party is like how, if I didn't know who Nick Cave was, how contemporary sounding these records still feel. Like, it's wild that he considers this thing juvenilia, and like it would have, if it was put out by like some fucking trust fund hipsters in Brooklyn in 2013, Pitchfork would have creamed their collective fucking jeans over it.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, that's that silly bullshit I wrote when I was a goddamn teenager.
It's like it's on par with a lot of the post-punk from that. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
He already started off in a pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But so then what's the arc of the birthday party overall, Caleb, once they formally become the birthday party?
So I think I need to have their like discography pulled up, because like on Spotify it's different from what it actually is. Yeah,
right.
Like what they can legally have on there.
Right.
But I think the switch is when they released the album Hee Haw. That's when they kind of started going for the more like leaning into horror, because that was another thing I think Nick Cave didn't like about the first album, was that it wasn't that scary. And so then Roland S. Howard starts, kind of screwing around with the guitar to make it fucking terrifying, and then make it sound like cowboy movies too. And
early interest in that you can see already.
Yes, and that was built into their live persona. So they stop, being like, the guys in dress shirts and suits and stuff. Then they get, so their bassist, who died really young but was like incredible, Tracy Pugh. He'd be wearing like leather chaps and a big black like cowboy hat. Roland S. Howard would have like a cigarette in his mouth and just be like flailing around. And then Nick Cave would also be doing that. And then they'd have like the straight man, which was Mick Harvey. And he would just kind of stand there and be like the artist while all of them just go fucking wild. And then, so that was, I think, when they released the, actually, no, so I got it wrong. Hee Haw is a compilation album.
Oh, right.
Wait.
No, yeah, I'm looking at this too, and I'm kind of confused how this lineup.
Yeah, it's
works.
real confusing. So yeah, there are like eras of the albums of what they're kind of switching, and that's just more where they were creatively in the band. So they're getting real pissed off with Australia right now. It's really culturally conservative. They're not gaining traction, and they're like, oh shit, there are bands like The Damned, Bauhaus, and Susie and the Banshees killing it in London. We're moving to London. So they go there and they start doing shows and getting into fights with goth guys. I read a story about they were on doing a show with Bauhaus, and Nick kept grabbing their lights and swinging them around his head and throwing them into things. And so then they were getting into fights with the crew, like fist fights.
Oh, man.
And so that continued. Just like Nick hated the fans. I think he called them like a bunch of cretins at some point, or like he's never met a worse group of people or something like that. So that their music, that's when it took an even darker turn, is when they're really starting to get pissed off with like every scene they keep going through. They got sick of the punk scene in Australia. Like the Saints were awesome, but they're bored of that. We're leaving Australia. Now we're going with the goth guys, and these guys are babies and taking shit too seriously. So then they're like, okay, we're done here. And then they move to Berlin, because that's where like goth is really starting to get interesting. I'm forgetting the name of the guy he collabed with. It's some German name. But that was when they started doing this, like, it was like on the last end of things where Nick is starting to realize that he can be an artist. Like he's really feeling restricted by just being like doing crazy shows. Cause again, he hates the fans. He doesn't feel artistically fulfilled. He's Roland S. Howard wants to stay doing the crazy shit. Mm-hmm. And then Tracy Pugh is busy going to jail for drunk driving for a while. It was like months. And I think it was 1983 is when they split, and that was after, I think, Junkyard, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And then like directly after that, like I'm talking, I think weeks or like a month or two, the Bad Seeds or the Cavemen, whatever they were called, is a thing. Like it was immediately after that. He's like, I'm done. I'm done with the punk shows. I'm gonna sing murder ballads.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where we get into the 80s Nick Cave, which is still, I think, pretty harsh and aggressive compared to later stuff. I think still alienating for a lot of people. Probably.
That's a spooky one.
Yeah, there's not no post-punk on these early records.
Yeah. It's there.
It's pretty
there.
Cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, also it's worth mentioning that Roland S. Howard has some solo work too. I'm not as familiar with it. But it's still pretty interesting, and it's all the people that came. That's another thing worth mentioning is anybody who has like been involved with the Birthday Party or the Bad Seeds has a pretty decent solo career. Like Mick Harvey has a pretty famous single. I think it's called like "Long Time Man" or something. Out of Time Man, I don't remember. And Nick Cave's girlfriend at the time of being in the Birthday Party, Anita Lane, would also be in the Bad Seeds and has a solo career too. Mm-hmm. And then Tracy Pugh, also kind of in the middle of the Bad Seeds taking off, is like maybe a couple years after Tracy Pugh dies of a brain aneurysm from alcoholism.
Yeah,
bummer. Yeah. I think that's all my random trivia for now.
That's your trivia. Yeah. So and then, moving away from the stuff we're talking about as much, but from there, like that 80s period of the, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, that's some of the early stuff we'll talk about a bit, but, he gets really interested in the American South and kind of like a really Southern Gothic, Flannery O'Connor kind of influenced vibe, really interested in the Old Testament. And then around the 90s, he moves, he's, at least according to Wikipedia, he was living in Sao Paulo in England. He was moving back and forth between the two, and he got really into the New Testament. And that's like, I think the stuff that I tend to latch onto is his like more gospel influenced stuff.
Yeah.
It's just kind of continued to be an interesting artist from then on out. Also importantly, I think it was in the 2010s would be the period he lost both of his kids.
Yes.
At different moments too. Yeah.
Yes. I can't remember what happened to the other one, but I think it was his oldest committed suicide, which is why he makes a lot of references to Flannery O'Connor that I think hit really hard now after that.
There's I think at least more than one Flannery O'Connor story that includes a child committing suicide. I could see why he would be haunted by that writing.
Well, that was Jethro. I think he was 31, and then it was Arthur in 2015. I think who was a teenager, but he was dosed on acid and fell off a cliff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Awful.
Truly awful. Yeah. And so kind of naturally his music throughout that period onto the present has been really oriented around grief. And so that was kind of what was on my mind a bunch when Caleb and I got a chance to see Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds live last week. Yeah. Beginning of May, with my dad, who is of course a huge Nick Cave fan, kind of an obsessive Nick Cave fan. So it was kind of fun to see my dad fangirling,
Oh yeah.
Oh man,
that was a relentless experience.
I got to see some real adorable pics of you guys and your dad on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
Over the past couple days. So extremely happy for you and your incredibly cool family bonding moment.
Yeah, it was so fun.
It was. Yeah.
But what I was struck by a ton when I went there, because so we're seeing him on the Wild God tour. That's his most recent album. And I was making these jokes, as we were going in, I was like, we're going to see a bunch of like old goths. That's going to be the crowd for this. It's going to be like 50-year-old goths. And then I was like 100% right. And like, it was, just like old people in like Bauhaus t-shirts and shit like that. It was awesome. I saw a Gary Newman t-shirt. We got that.
Yeah, there's a Gary Newman t-shirt. There's a guy in a black kilt.
Yeah.
Fuck yes.
So it was that. And, but the thing is, like, I was kind of making that, like, kind of as a mean joke, but as the show was going on, I was starting to, like, I don't know, realize that was actually something kind of moving I started to find because I think that Nick Cave is one of the few artists right now who, like, usually when you see an artist that was like really at their prime in like the 70s and 80s and stuff like that was when their early stuff was, you go and see them now and it's like a legacy act. It's a nostalgia thing. It's kind of pathetic a little bit. It's kind of sad to like watch like somebody playing the tunes they wrote when they were 20 up there and they look like they're going to fall over. And that is not Nick Cave. Nick Cave is still a very, very energetic and active artist. And what I was struck by is that he is one of the few artists, I think, right now, genuinely writing music about like the period of life that is old age and like late middle age, because he's in his late 60s right now. And like people don't break out, albums that are getting this critically acclaimed and shit like that when they're in their late 60s. Usually if they're still making stuff, everybody's kind of like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Might need to chill out.
Yeah. I think, restricting the conversation to, rock music or pop music, because I feel like it's a very, especially in the more traditional classical world, you don't get the acclaim, but like there is this idea of mastery and virtuosity that comes with being I think instrumentalists specifically, but this kind of singer songwriting being this vital throughout a career is
wild,
very rare. Very rare.
Yeah, and it so it was kind of stunning because I remember having a couple moments in the concert. This sounds like a joke, but I mean it sincerely, that I'm not like that some of these old gray hairs I'm walking around me are having an emotional experience that I cannot even fathom yet. Like a moment with this music that is like connecting to emotions I haven't even felt yet. I feel like Nick Cave is tapping into aspects of this part of life that very few artists are able to do. And I really respect that. I think Wild God is a really good album, It is I listened to it a few times after the show, and I think he's tapping into something that's just kind of very much his own thing. And not to mention, like I was saying, energy, the amount of energy he has on stage is kind of crazy. Like, what was one of the older ones he covered? He did cover one of the older ones you had said.
From Here to Eternity.
Yeah. And he still does he can do the harsh vocals still. Like, he still can do it. I was kind of amazed.
I couldn't do what he was doing. Yeah. I don't think I have that much breath. And he's switching back and forth at the beginning, especially from like a rock song to piano. And he's sitting down, he'll like be playing for a bit, then he'll just like stand up really quick and toss the microphone and then just like start like interacting with the crowd and running across the stage. I mean, he's not like running, but he's moving fast. Like he is. Yeah. Him and Warren Ellis too. He's a fiddle player. Or he's a multi-instrumentalist that tours with Nick and has done soundtracks and shit. And he's like standing on chairs while he's like doing a fiddle solo. Like it's great. It's crazy. Yeah. Dude looks like Santa Claus.
Yeah, Warren Ellis is great. He was so fun.
But back to the show, kind of what you were. I was noticing that too. If like multiple people around me are just like sobbing, you know. And but I think one of the most impressive things, and it's not, I mean, when you think about a famous musician, it's not like crazy that he could command a room. but how quick he was able to do like a call and response with the crowd, like get people to start, just take over Red Right Hand essentially. Or I don't remember the song, but there was a clapping pattern we were talking about after the show that was it was kind of hard to get people to do.
If you've ever tried to make a crowd clap, if you've ever had to do that,
miserable chore.
It is awful. Like just get people at a bar, like when I played a punk band, to just do a just kind of a classic.
Just do it. We don't need you to be on time. We know you're not going to be on time. Just do it.
So
just
hard.
try.
And Nick Cave was able to get seamlessly people to do, if I remember right, the clapping pattern was like a whole during the stanza rapid thing, and then stop with the big one, and then hold it for a second, then and I was like, how are you getting a crowd to successfully do that and then keep doing that for a whole verse of the song while you're performing? But yeah, I mean, he's got a real like ability to take hold of the crowd and kind of work them, because I with Red Right Hand, so good was they never actually played the melody that you get stuck in your head. The da 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 da. What he did is kind of edge it the whole song and never play it. And then when he built up to it, he had everybody go na 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 na.
And then cut out the rest of the instruments, and it was just them.
It was so fucking cool, man. He knows what he's doing.
Like, man, this is, I mean, it's shit like that truly reassures me that the human spirit will not die. Like, there is no machine that can replace that kind of musical performance on that scale.
Genuinely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Caleb, you had sent us that interview Colbert did with Nick Cave kind of semi-recently, and he directly addresses this, what you're talking about, like where one of his biggest fears right now is AI music, and like the attempts to try to pass over because he has this deep belief that music is like the closest thing in a disenchanted world we have to transcendent experience, and he's like seeing people try to hand that over to robots, and it makes him mad.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. No, what was it? Yeah. Last chance as forces seek to take away the creative act from the human was that's kind of a paraphrase, but like, yeah, you referred to it as forces, and we all, I kind of like how elusive and diplomatic it is, but like it is just merely big tech companies. But I mean, I think he's right to say they are but like the tip of the spear of an entire sentiment that does seem to be trying to carve out all of the human meat that inconveniently stands between an idea and reality and the product at the the commodity on the other end.
I don't know, totally.
It's that he's got that, like, I don't know, there's a certain like interest in like mythology and spiritual language to talk about this kind of stuff throughout his work, and I think that's also part of it. Is I kind of do like that when he talks about AI, he talks about it like it's like an evil force, like you're saying, this like demonic presence that's trying to strip us of
it's I mean it's right. We know what the thing literally is. It's this randomness generator, but like the that sort of approximates something like human speech and reasoning, but only kinda some of the time. But yeah, what who are the masters of this, and what is the vision, and what are they what are they seeing? What are they connecting with through it? And I think it's forces beyond their comprehension. And just that, somebody like Nick Cave is this is a very personal episode for you, but like, well, while you guys were going to see this, I was off in the Oregon coast, meeting some extended family and getting a little vacation, but getting to meet people who are now my aunts and uncles by marriage now. I've been encountering a whole slew of like different ways to be an old guy. So now I've just I've been thinking a lot about things like aging and parenthood recently, and so all to say, having a guy like Nick Cave, who is my parents' exact generation, who is still an incredibly vital and important artist, who is like completely spiritually aligned of the direction the business culture in this country is going, fills me with a lot of hope. Like you can, if you can make it, you can, it's actually very possible to become a cool old person. You can make
they
exist.
Music
they exist. They're not, they don't all have Facebook brain rots. Some of them like read books and shit. It's so cool. No, I mean, like, just pretty dope.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no. After that show and just kind of researching for, I say researching for this episode like I did any, listening to music it's because I have been trying to learn guitar for a while and or just like maybe get into songwriting or something, and like after seeing somebody like him, and like you're saying, somebody at that age just command a room and just play. It was a long show, but there was no opener. It was like 2.5 hours of just him. But it was fucking sick. It was cool, and like I barely knew any of the songs off Wild God, and I was still just having a great time, just along for the ride. Yeah, it was very inspiring stuff. Well, to kind of pivot us more to like some of the themes in his music, I think another thing I was really hit by throughout it, and in kind of in the conversation about his views on AI as part of this, is I think one of the key aspects of Nick Cave's work is a fear of, well, not even just a fear of disenchantment, but more like a commitment to re-enchanting the world, to kind of having this like really mythological way of looking at things. So a good example of this is Tupelo, right? Tupelo is a song about Elvis. It is just a loving embrace of Americana. But it's also about the fact that there happened to be a massive flood in Tupelo the day that Elvis was born, and to make that some sort of huge epic moment of like the birth of American culture. It rules. Speaking of God, sorry, I'm the king of talking about anything except the actual subject matter of the podcast. I mean, and this is a niche thing, but I shared a Substack with Josiah called Mytho America. That was apparently it was a Twitter account, so I finally got through, like, there's only like a few Substack posts, and I think the project wrapped, but it was like a Twitter photo account. Like, it was more of an aesthetic account. So
I'd seen some of that.
Yeah, the main point. Yeah, so I think I'd probably come across a lot of those images, but right, it was this person who created the Mytho America account was curating a lot of images and kind of investigating where this, maybe the mythic, the sacred, the profane, the light, the dark exist in this intensely. Why does spirit persist even though materially we have this like really, we live in this disenchanted mechanistic age? Why is there this deep spiritual attraction to this detritus of America? And then just trying to take that a little more seriously. So kind of listening to some Nick Cave is kind of like made me, because I just accepting that account is a much more imagistic thing, and because there's that compilation.
50 metaphysical statements about America, and it just states these pretty wild things in just like very plain language, or like, you know, but there's a truth to them. Like, I think it's describing a certain operation of how the American mind works, and you know, even though we talk about things in a very degraded, materialistic and kind of business coded language, I mean, I think that's what evangelicalism is kind of about, is the at least on the town level, the dumbing down of spirituality so your average bank manager can, like, you know, launder the guilt of his boring day-to-day existence without have to worry about like things like metaphor. I don't know, I feel like that obsession with the American South, like, I think that expressed itself more in my fascination with like sludge metal, but I mean, it's all kind of pulling from the same well, and it's nice to be validated as like a fellow like weird, conflicted, deep South weeb.
Yeah, well, I mean, and he kind of is exactly like that. Well, and I think part of that is because of his background in Australia. And I think like I don't know, like if you ever see The Proposition, right? So the movie that he wrote it, right?
Yes, that's yeah, and he did the screenplay and the soundtrack with Warren Ellis, so it's all him, and it's directed by John Hillcoat, the guy who did The Road and Lawless, and
it's
all
really
those
good.
Great movies. Yeah,
it's really good.
It is like the best West.
I think you can kind of see in watching that, like, the ways he's making parallels between Australia and the US, like, or rather, when watching him tell a story set in Australia, you can see the motifs from American Westerns and stuff like that he's interested in, and how he kind of sees that connection. And I think one of those is just like, while it never directly addresses race as a theme, he isn't like talking about racism, there just is a lot of it. It deals pretty explicitly with like just some of the characters are indigenous, and this is how they were treated then, you know.
The opening of the movie has nothing to do with like the story of the movie. It's just pictures of Aboriginal people. It's just reminding you these people were here.
And I think, you know, when we talk about the American Deep South, like, that's also a theme going on constantly in Flannery O'Connor's work, which, you know, she wasn't always great about. Also, famously, she was, you know, has some pretty racist writing as well, which is unfortunate as a fan, but fan of her work, very, you know, influenced by her work. But no, in it, a lot of that is, you know, a constant theme. Like that's part of understanding the Deep South, is this God-haunted, sin-obsessed place, while there is kind of just pure evil playing out on a systemic level around you constantly, you know. Whether that be segregation and stuff like that in kind of the Flannery O'Connor's era of the South, versus slavery in the past, or in Australia it would be, you know, the extermination of Indigenous people, Aboriginal people. It's, I think, while he doesn't, Nick Cave isn't particularly political, and I kind of prefer it when he's not, because when he is, it kind of gets annoying. But I think he's really interested in sin and evil. And I think naturally that rubs up on questions of politics and questions of, you know.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting that he considers this divide in his work kind of like Old Testament, New Testament, and it's a literal transition in interest in the different bodies of work. But yeah, I mean, it was all some Wikipedia skimming, but yeah, just kind of seeing the brief little blurb on like, well, he's anti-woke politics and cancel culture. Yeah, but I could, even in that, it's like, okay, that is, you know, really cringy, and it's like he's not totally, probably, I mean, he's probably not understanding it in the same internet poisoned way that we are. And I think it really is coming from that that I want to believe it's coming from a good place and kind of believing in this possibility of redemption or forgiveness rather than outright condemnation.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Sometimes a guy just sucks so bad you need to get him fired.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't like censorship, and he cares a lot about art, and he will, because of that, lash out sometimes at what I don't like, BDS and stuff like that, because he sees it as censorship. He doesn't like people going after his artists.
It's an aging punk trait.
It is
an aging
and
punk
that's
trait.
also an aspect of this. Is this just a lot of dudes from the 80s are doing this stuff? Although I will say, to say that not all. I mean, famously, his little, like, one of his arguments about BDS was because Brian Eno and Roger Waters, who are also old guys, were asking him to follow BDS more. So, you don't have to be this way.
That's right, because he was right. It was shows he was playing in Israel, wasn't it?
Yep,
yeah,
that was one of those things.
For that. Man, don't worship your idols too much.
Yeah.
I mean, but at least like a main theme in his work is that humans are fallible and imperfect. Like, I don't know. It's like
you can criticize him with
the
his
beauty
own
and the
work.
ugly.
I don't know, because it's like, because it's like so much of his work is actually invested in these things, but then it's like, it's such a bummer that it kind of translates into like this ideological blind spot because he has an outdated conception of like the terms at stake here.
It's just if you like older guys, you're gonna run into this.
You're gonna run into it.
Like, I mean, as a fan of the Monty Python folks, I have had to live with John Cleese for the last couple of decades.
Such a drag, dude. Such a fucking bummer.
But all this to say, though, I think he just isn't looking at things in a very one of the political comments I think I saw is he's like with the anti-wokeness stuff is he's like, he doesn't like the idea of systemic evil, but then when you hear him talk and the way he uses the word systemic in some of the interviews we even listen to, I think his point is that he doesn't like the idea of calling the world evil. Because he's like insistent on finding beauty in the world despite its suffering. So when he hears about systemic problems, he's hearing it as hearing it in these terms of like somebody saying the world is irreparably broken and evil. And he's like very obstinately trying to find beauty in the world and is resistant because of that. Which is it's just like Marx just isn't in the list of books I think he's reading. You know what I mean? Sorry, Caleb, go ahead. Go.
I was just there was a quote from the book I was reading that I feel like kind of encapsulate not necessarily the political stuff, but just like how his worldview would influence what we're talking about is just kind of on Nick's philosophy that he was dealing with the same darkly putrid imagery, yet finding the beauty in the filth of life, mashing abandon and melancholy or heaven and hell together into a stinking rotten heap. And that I feel like is special. Like early on, that's like where you hear the real nihilistic political stuff, and now he's just trying to find, like in the Colbert interview, he kept telling stories of how he thinks humanity is inherently good.
He's really insistent on there's a line in probably my favorite song off of Wild God, which is Joy, where he has a line about looking out at the stars and seeing them as bright triumphant metaphors of love. That's the thing. He's always like trying to like find beautiful things in the world despite it, leading up to that line is about grief and stuff like that, and so then moving there, it's like, in spite of all this, I see this. And I think that's that's I think central to a lot of what's going on here is he is understanding America in these mythological terms. He's understanding, the world in these kind of mythological and spiritualized terms. And he's trying to identify what he sees as sources of beauty and affirmations of the human spirit. And so he's afraid of people dumping out the baby with the bathwater. Totally get that.
I think we're kind of a term I am growing to enjoy and find useful, though maybe I got it I won't worry about it. The holographic left. Which is which is a way to differentiate it from the actually existing left, the people who go in the streets, the people who are actively politically engaged versus people who are posting. And there is significant overlap between the two graphs, between the two sides of the Venn diagram. I don't want to discount that, but I think especially when you're talking in very kill all normies terms about the internet culture wars of the past 10 years, these are people mostly posting about ideas who may or may not be doing anything in the real world. And I think that's kind of it's this twin thing of coming from a specific internet subculture that I don't think he has much contact with. And it's that culture kind of playing fast and loose with some pretty specific academic language. And so it's all to say, I am justifying his response because I know this man's heart is in the right place.
Definitely,
But it is right. It is just resulting in some very frustrating blind spots that his terms of understanding the world can't seem to cope with.
Because I don't think he's very online at all. Aside from the red hand files, because I think that's not physical letters. I think that's emails.
I think
he's aware, but he is an artist through and through. I don't think he fully sees himself as just a musician. So he's just going to. I think he probably shuts himself off from that part of. Not on purpose, but he is just trying to create things constantly. And I don't think he's I don't know.
It's just saying from his perspective, I think he probably thought he was denying he was denying other people something. I don't know. I think he was just thinking about putting on a concert.
Well, and I think throughout all of his work, you see a real emphasis on trying to affirm humanity, affirm the human spirit, and affirm. I think he's engaging in a lot of work of empathy. A lot. That's a lot of what he's doing. But well, and I mean that's famously one of the best Nick Cave songs. Is Mercy Seat, and that it's got the 7-minute old version where it's the louder aggressive one, and then there's the piano driven one that he's done later on, but it's written for the perspective of a death row someone on death row preparing to
the electric
die.
Chair.
And I mean that's that is a act of empathy to be kind of getting into that headspace, I think.
Well, because that's what I think makes the switch of him doing acoustic so impactful, as it goes from it already was the song, so it's the same lyrics and the same emotion, but the original one is loud. And so it's more the fear of going on an electric chair, where the other one's leaning more into the religious side of it, the acoustic version. It's a lot more,
Breath at my hind, and I hear stories from the chamber how Christ was born into a manger, and like some ragged stranger died upon the cross. And might I say it seems so fitting in his way. He was a carpenter by trade, or at least that's what I'm told.
And I mean this song I think is the enchanted worldview of Nick Cave pretty strongly, and I think even in the fear of a lack of enchantment, because this is the desperation of somebody who's going to die, who is going to be executed, and for which they are guilty of the crime. That's also a big part of the song. Like it openly says that ahead of time, like at the first verse. And then you go from that to, I began to warm and chill to objects in their fields, a ragged cup, a twisted mop, the face of Jesus in my soup, those sinister dinner deals, the meal trolley's wicked wheels, a hooked bone rising from my food, all things either good or ungood. So he's having this like, in his final meal, these like visions of, I don't know, something beyond perhaps the ability to be forgiven, stuff like that. I don't know. I love this song.
Yeah, no, it's great. Wish I had more to say about the religious stuff, but from like I just know that era less. Like I like that the line from Catholic Skin where he says boneless Anglican. That was kind of funny. I don't know, I need to check out more of the like Bowman's Call and that, or the album surrounding that. I think I don't know why I've with a lot of bands, because I started off a lot of my favorite bands I started off hating. I hated Nick Cave. I think up until the concert, I did not like the song Red Right Hand.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The concert won me over.
Really? Yeah. Oh, wow.
It's just because I have, the annoying thing of like, oh, the most popular song is the one I should care the least about. Yeah. And so I need to, with a lot of bands, I feel like I need to go in backwards. So once I also I just prefer rock. So naturally I was more drawn to the creepy stuff, which also I hated The Birthday Party the first time I heard it. Because Dad is actually the one who played Release the Bats for me. I'm like, oh, this is dick. This sucks. And I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I never really cared, or I did care, but like it was whatever. I think, especially because I don't like what other like when we were younger, Josiah, if you liked a band, I would purposely not like it. Yeah, that was what I was doing with Nick Cave a lot, and I was around Dad because I was living at home at the time, and he was like getting huge into Peaky Blinders. And I was like, okay, well, he's playing this dude all the time, and it sounds like worship music. This sucks. I was very wrong, and I will admit that.
Well, so what was it about like The Birthday Party and the older stuff that got you sucked in, I guess?
It was more it's the music history side of things. Is I have always, had an interest in classic punk just from listening to the Dead Kennedys as a kid, or the occasional Ramones song, or what have you. So then when I was getting into that stuff, because also I had discovered horror punk from hearing the Murder City Devils, and then by proxy the Misfits. But then I kind of stopped listening to that stuff because when in high school I got more into emo because I was sad. And then as I started getting older, I was more wanting to, I want to understand where music comes from. So like when I was in college, I was actually researching about punk music, and then that's when I started getting into the goth stuff again, because I was also vaguely familiar with like the bigger goth bands like Bauhaus or Susie and the Banshees. And then I'm like, I see The Birthday Party pop up again. I'm like, oh, Dad was talking about them. And I'm like, oh, they're like famous in the goth scene, but not in the U.S.
Interesting.
Because of a lot of licensing things. That was briefly mentioned in that Henry Rollins clip of that. He's one of the reasons The Birthday Party has music again. He found old recordings from that Mick Harvey had, and started re-releasing them. And so once I realized that, like, again, this is like a known band, but not like as like, if you don't have to be goth to know who Bauhaus or Susie and the Banshees are. Those are like when I was talking about Nick Cave, he's transcended the term goth. Bauhaus and Susie and the Banshees have both done that, and they're both bands that deny being goth, and so is Nick Cave. He hates the term goth.
Well, extremely funny with Release the Bats that he was like clowning on goth. And then it became like wildly influential on the scene.
Incredibly,
it happens all the time. I mean, there's a really popular hardcore band, Tsunami, right now. They're a parody band. They're not like they're making fun, like the music they're playing, they're making fun of a certain kind of dumb guy hardcore, and they're like one of the biggest bands in the scene right now.
It happens. It kind of reminds me of the pivot the Offspring did, where they were just a regular punk band, and then they started like just getting weird with it, and then it like took off insanely.
Yeah, I do love. Okay, the release of Bats is awesome. As I didn't realize that it was supposed to be making fun of goth, because it's so funny in that context. Now that I realize that.
Yeah, the sex vampire bats, sex vampire bats.
It's just about having vampire sex, My baby is a cool machine. She moves to the pace of her generator, says, damn, that sex supreme, but says, damn, that horror bat. Sex vampire, cool machine.
Okay, and then compare that with like a Bauhaus single.
Yeah.
And then you're like, he's talking about like sucking on some lady's hip, It's some horny vampire shit.
Oh, that's so funny.
I don't think I knew that either. That it was it for sure is now that I've heard that. It's for sure.
Yeah, now that you pointed out, it's kind of hard not to see it.
Yeah.
Well, and it is interesting because it's different than like not that he won't go into like kind of goofier stuff like this when he wants to, but like a lot of his other stuff, even the earlier stuff, like when it's talking about sexuality or whatever, it's much more in this like romantic note. And this song is
either romantic
like,
or gross.
Yeah, this one's just funny.
Yeah, it's just vampire sex, bro. They got the bats. Oh man.
Yeah, but like, he can get weird with it too. Like Dead Joe.
Oh yeah.
That songs like that, it really sets them apart when you think of other post-punk bands, because a lot of post-punk bands, are just staring at their feet. You can't perform a song like Dead Joe while just like standing there and playing a guitar. Like that's why they had that reputation of just like Stooge-esque things of throwing yourself on broken glass. Yeah, and still managing to sound musically good after like being in immense pain.
They were built different back then.
It really were. It was the drugs and the alcohol.
It was the drugs and the alcohol.
You don't feel anything if the world is upside down.
No, yeah, it's kind of funny how like there's all these different roads through modern extreme music that kind of land back in Nick Cave. Because just like Metallica covering him, well, a lot of the noise rock guys I was getting into 10 years ago, like they were huge boosters for the birthday party. The instrumentals are, straight up like Jesus Lizard Big Black. He like both influenced goth and kind of invented, noise rock came from a lot of different other things, but like there is a sound that birthday party was doing that those guys had to pick up and run with. Like there's stuff that just feels too eerily similar to those first couple like Jesus Lizard records, and a lot of the fucked up guitar noise is all over Big Black, and
like a wall of sound type of thing, and that just comes from shitty recordings, but then all the noise rock guys hear that and then like make it a genre.
Then Steve Albini made his guitar sound like that in real life, and no one knows how he did it. Even he told everybody how he did it, and it's still no one knows.
So sick.
No one knows how he got it to sound like that.
That's like one of those just kind of things I think you run into a lot is the way that the bad parts of a sound from a certain era, like give it a decade or whatever, everybody's chasing that. It's the same with the like what people are always nostalgic for, like the look of film, because of the grains and stuff like that. You don't get that anymore. And then now we've gotten to a point that old like VHS has a really like nostalgic look. rather than just looking like shit like it did at the time, how most people felt.
Oh
Yeah,
man. Yeah. That was right. No, because I think there was always this expectation of the next new thing, and now we've hit a level of like widely available visual fidelity that hasn't really meaningfully advanced in about 15 years now.
Yeah.
Like it's gotten a little shinier, but like, I mean, you're not seeing the technological leaps that were occurring going like 8,
Couple
16,
decades ago.
32, like, you know, because it's like, I mean, it was like less than a decade between the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation all happening, going from like 2D to 3D. I don't know. Yeah, it just, right. There was a period of rapid development, and now we're kind of, well, I mean, they've got imaging that's beyond what the human eye can even appreciate now. They have the capability for it, but there's just no viable consumer technology for for this advanced optics. And like all to say, that's the thing that happens. Like, I mean, the entire reason we have you know, so much of the development of the electric guitar was like, how do we get an acoustic guitar to fill up a stadium, or how do we, you know, it was like, how do we maintain this like nice clean tone? Then it takes like a couple people going like, hey, nice 100-watt tube amplifier you got there. Wonder what happens when I just turn everything all the way up.
Yep. And then you start to really like that sound, and then here that's an overdrive.
Then some idiot dropped his speaker cabinet in the parking lot, and it tore the speaker cone, and that's how you get the fuzz sound. And they figured out how to put that in a little box. And no, it's just like, right. I mean, so much of what defines an aesthetic comes from the early failures of the medium. I mean, you can say the same thing about like photography. I mean, like it's not the main mode, but like the film photography scene is alive and well.
Oh, very much so. Yeah absolutely.
But yeah, it's just it's dope. It's all I don't. What was it about? Like, there are just these periods and bands and things that they craft to sound so timeless that it's like they were just predicting the future like 20 years too early.
Yeah.
It feels like, just because like it's like I get this with the Cars a bit. Like, you hear these sounds and you're like, oh, that's late 80s. That's got to be like the late 80s or the mid 90s or something.
Yeah.
And then you're like, they were doing this in 1976. You know, like,
yeah.
That's what like intrigued me about researching music history, is seeing how early somebody has done it before, like what everyone thinks is the first person to do it. You know, I had mentioned the very first goth band is Susie and the Banshees, and like also around 76, also just the unique, like the sound, like Susie and the Banshees is like what made, besides like David Bowie and all their influence, what made the 80s sound. I would like Susie Sue has like a huge hand in that, and it's just, it's interesting to hear. But yeah, like kind of back to the birthday party influence of like, besides just like Big Black, I'm a huge Butthole Surfers fan, and like think of the most cowboy sounding birthday party songs, just mix that with like the King of the Hill theme and some Black Flag, and you got Butthole Surfers.
You got Butthole Surfers. You got yourself a butthole.
You got yourself a butthole to surf.
Oh yes. Whenever I think of that band, I just think of that. It's Ned Flanders' son. He finds like a shirt in a lost and found. It's the butthole surfers, and he just like looks at his dad and is like, "Dad, I'm surfing."
Yeah, I think the kind of, you know, bluesier or like almost like like that bluesier sound is, I think, not talked about as much with Birthday Party because of, we're always talking about their noise kind of influence and their goth or whatever. But I do think it's also really central is the degree to which these are some spooky cowboys. You know, the Birthday Party's got some spooky cowboy stuff going on too.
Cowboys in mesh tank tops.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Besides aesthetically, like, just it sounds like, you know, the soundtrack of like in a Western of a gunfight. Yeah, like, or again, like I keep mentioning the song Dead Joe, but like just that little guitar interlude between him going, is like very, just Western coded.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so tired.
That's okay. And so,
Yeah, it's a Tuesday night
It
AF
is.
fam.
well, I guess, is there anything you want to focus in on here before we wrap up, Caleb?
I guess maybe just like name 3 of your favorites from the playlist, or just what do you like about Nick Cave, or what do you like about the birthday party?
Yeah.
Again, it's like it's an essay.
Well, from the playlist you had sent us, I think favorites would have been Tupelo, the Mercy Seat, and I feel like you'd be cheating if is that all the Nick Cave this far? Oh shit.
Yeah. I will count Boys Next Door and the birthday party as the same band.
Right.
So,
okay. Probably the hair shirt then.
All right, yeah, that's a good one. That one's very Talking Headsy.
Yeah, that's part of it, I think. Yeah,
love that one.
Oh man, yeah, it's I'm
or
starting.
Catholic Skin, excuse me, or Catholic Skin. Yeah,
nice.
Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. Oh man, three songs. I Mistake Myself.
Nice.
Boys Next Door / Birthday Party. Release the Bats. I think I had too much fun. I'm just gonna go with Release the Bats.
Solid pick.
What was it? There was a lot of. Right now that I'm looking at it's so funny. I distinctly recall enjoying so much on this playlist, and now that I actually have to think about it,
it's holding together.
Like which one was that again? Catman was fun.
Yeah, Catman's real fun.
So it's just like, those are almost all right next to each other on the playlist. There's it's kind of going through this. It's kind of wild how I've been a fan without being a proper fan. Been a Nick Cave admirer for quite some time. Just like I never, I had the one album, Dig Lazarus Dig. I really, and maybe even just that first song, but for the most part. But yeah, it's like I had the one album. It's like, oh, I like that, and I've always been meaning to dig a little deeper. And then the Noise Rock guys I got into are like, oh, have you heard about Nick Cave's first band, The Birthday Party? They're real fucked up, and then never not quite cracking through on that. But coming back around that, I think I share a lot of obsessions with the guy, and it's kind of weird that I didn't dive deeper into it. Earlier, and just like the whole gamut. I love all of it. I'm a pretty huge fan of this like really rough and evil Old Testament like depraved juvenilia basically, and then the more reflective and somber haunted old man phase I'm excited to dive into as well.
Hell yeah.
But just like, also just a remarkably consistent artistic voice through all of these projects. Like it was wild kind of going back and just like, I mean, because it's the same guy, but just like that, I don't know what I was expecting, but you kind of hear the Birthday Party. Oh, they're kind of like a noise rock. And it's like, you don't quite expect Nick Cave to be doing the exact same delivery in the Birthday Party that he keeps going with in his solo work. And it's arresting. It's like, that's almost the most shocking thing about it. Is like, oh man, Duder was just, it was like, oh, he had that from the beginning. That wasn't a development, Well,
I mean,
which isn't to say there wasn't a development, but
no, there is. But it's like Nick Cave's work is like a stew. Almost, if that makes sense, where like you slow cook it because in the beginning it's got all the components, but they're like raw and they're a little more separated, and it feels in that harshness is fun, but it's like because you got the interest in goth stuff, you got the interest in religious stuff, you got the interest in the noisy stuff and experimentation, and then you've got this like cowboy interest in like the mythology of America, and like all of that's there, but it's like all those pieces are kind of bumping up against against each other in harsh and weird ways in the beginning. And then they just spend several decades stewing and they become one thing. And by the end, it's like, it's something else now, but it's like all kind of merged and found ways to like work together with more and more coherence until it becomes this like one vision. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Nick Cave is a stew.
Yeah. He is a stew.
And that it's like, I mean, and that, well, yeah, I mean, just where we started, like literary, I mean, his, I mean, just the fact that, like, you know, so many people would kill to have this guy's music career, but then he is also like, you know, it's not the thing that's paying the bills, but he's also a well-regarded and respected author, an incredibly accomplished writer, also a screenwriter, also a film scorer. And I mean, he's just been like, I don't know. I think it's the two types of guys in music that I really gravitate towards are the artist engineers and the artist gearheads, and then the artist like multidisciplinarian, where it's like, oh, this guy is just first and foremost a writer and teller of stories. It just happens like his most successful medium is just like the songs he wrote. Yeah, but he could have been equally involved in like I don't know, just the influence in the back and forth with the medium of film, I think, is also a huge part of the attraction for me. Also, oh my God, do you guys even know about his Gladiator 2 screenplay that they rejected?
No.
Oh, I actually didn't. I don't know the details. I just know that this happened.
Yeah, so there you can
Why did we get the Nick Cave Gladiator 2? What the fuck?
We live because as it is so explored in Nick Cave's work, we live in a fallen world.
That's right.
No, it's insane. Like it would have had it would have had Russell Crowe, and it would have picked up immediately Nick Cave's Gladiator 2 also stars Russell Crowe, and it begins right after Gladiator ended, and it follows Maximus Decimus's Meridius's journey through the realms of the gods and the afterlife, and the final scene is him taking an office at the Pentagon in the modern day, and it's supposed to be this tracing of this spirit of warfare and bloodshed from the ancient Roman times to modern history. So it's like, so he's escaped this like political thing, and he finds himself as this warrior enmeshed in this battle amongst the gods, and he kind of survives that. And I think by the main action of the story, he ends up in Europe amongst the gods and spirits of an ascendant Europe in the decline of the Roman Empire, and that it's like this kind of flash forward to modern day America. But yeah, that's what he turned in. Like, he was personally asked by Russell Crowe, fellow Aussie. He was like, "Yo, Nick Cave, you got a screenplay for Gladiator 2 for me?" That's fucking and I'm pretty sure they were. Yeah, and I mean, like, because we know what studio execs are like now, they laughed him out of the room. But like, I'm just like, if they could have gotten some version of that through, it might have been my favorite movie of all time. Who else is gonna like take a movie like Gladiator and like, okay, how do you make a sequel to this? Because they did in the past year, they made a sequel to it, and the reviews are good Denzel performance, mid otherwise. And like, there are like laudable aspects, but it's like a very, I guess, janky and kind of imperfect film, which is fine. We still love you, Ridley. But yeah, I mean, just the
Some
balls. Like, I mean, some people do. Yeah, some people do.
I'm when you were describing that, I was envisioning because you said it was going to flash at the end. It was going to flash him being at the Pentagon. It's going to do the Robert Pattinson "Remember Me" thing, and it's just going to be the Pentagon getting hit.
Russell.
Oh shit.
Well, Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the episode.
Yeah,
Unless
I gotta name my 3 songs.
Oh yes.
Oh,
What are
wow,
your
we
3
totally-
we missed that. What are your 3 favorite songs off this playlist?
It's very hard because I made the playlist, and then these are like some of my favorite of his in general. So it's picking favorites of favorites. But it would be, I think it would be After a Fashion, either Loom of the Land or Muddy Water, and then I Let Love In.
Yeah, Love In's
Hell
great.
yeah.
And
It's funny. Most of those were Nick Cave songs too. I just mentioned.
yeah, although I will say After a Fashion was up there as a song I almost said, so
Yeah.
that's a good one.
It is so. I don't know if we'll include this or not. Just real quick, Josiah, did you hear the Newsboys in that
I
or
did
not?
not
Am
get
I
a
crazy?
chance. I did not get a chance to do back to back with that.
At some point,
Let me-
I swear to God, the guitar solo from After a Fashion and the guitar solo from LEG are very similar.
Okay, wait.
They're both Australian.
I'm doing it.
They're Australian. They're from the 80s. Newsboys is from the late 80s. This is when they were actually kind of good. Was the first Newsboys album. I see you sneering right now.
Oh,
I'm
God.
not-
Man.
oh.
I'm just like, God, I mean, because, yeah, you got Midnight Oil going around that time. Yeah, I see where they were probably, God damn it.
I can kind of hear the solo is the same as so
Just
LEG.
a little bit. It's not
yeah last song on Going Public. Yeah.
And that is an album I will defend.
Well, one day,
And it feels weird to do so.
One day, I'm not going to do it this year with Christian Rock Summer, but one year I will actually do Newsboys because there are a couple records I will defend and then a lot I will not. And it's
I like John.
Going like it's like that early period. It's like Going Public and Take Me to Your Leader and some of that I will go to bat for.
They had 3 singers. The first one is I loved. The second one was pretty good. It kind of got bad, and then DC Talk.
Well, I mean, I think the problem with talking about Newsboys nowadays is just like that they've continued to have such an afterlife with the like God's Not Dead series and stuff like that, that no one knows of them as like the 90s alt Christian band.
They've never seen the movie.
Which is what I think of when I think of them. I think of like 90s alt rock, and so it's very it's weird to
very odd.
Anyway, that's a different episode.
The whole other
that's a different
massive
that's a very different episode. That is way too big of a can of worms. Oh man.
Yeah. Those were my 3.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, Nick Cave. He's good, folks.
He's good, folks.
Listen to some Nick Cave songs. Listen to some birthday party records.
Yes. If you get the chance, see Nick Cave live.
Yeah, if you do get a chance,
cannot stress that enough.
It's worth it.
And watch some of his movies. Watch The Proposition. That's one of my favorite movies. It's definitely my favorite Western.
I like this episode as just placing Nick Cave into the fruitless canon, and we will open this binder up again at some point. There's a lot of Nick Cave, adjacent stuff that I definitely would like to talk about on the show. The Proposition being one of them. I would love to talk about that movie.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. So we talk about Wings of Desire, the Wim Wenders movie that he did the soundtrack, part of the soundtrack for.
Yep.
Oh man,
so many soundtracks. Right?
Isn't that wild?
Dude has his hands in everything.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps out with the algorithm. And if you really liked the show, consider supporting it on Patreon. And one of the benefits of supporting this show on Patreon is that you get your name read out at the end of every episode. So, without further ado, this episode is brought to you by our lovely patrons who include Avakai Brodagam, I Drink Corn Syrup, Yum, I Am Once Again, Leo Zachary Dickinson, Philip Cozy, Vita Breva, Tension Francis, Caleb Butler, Derek Hale, Gavin Aronson, Josh Christensen, Kyle Gannis, Mitchell McKinley, Moss, Nathan Thiessen, please don't read my name out, I'm shy, Randy Sutton, Regular Size Horse, parentheses, Small, Robert Eilman, Steven aka Spike Stone, and the worst of all possible worlds, Vicky Sutton, and of course, Chris Barker. Thank you so much for supporting the show.